If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this super episode of Mind Pump. So for the first 30 minutes, we do our introductory fun time conversation. We start out by talking about 90s commercial and 90s style. It's back in style now, guys.
Finally.
My wardrobe makes sense now.
Yeah.
We talked about my daughter's workout and her post-workout smoothie box shake. She loves it. Now, Smoothie Box delivers organic fruits and vegetables to your door, all packaged out with collagen protein, healthy fats, healthy carbs, healthy proteins. You blend it up. It's delicious. Here's what you do. Go to SmoothieBox, SmoothieBox.com/mindpump, and you will get $20 off your first 3 boxes. Then we talked about Skinny Dipped and their new flavor of chocolate-covered almonds, mint chocolate. Justin's
my favorite.
He's about to get fat. Look, Skinny Dipped makes amazing snacks. These are almonds lightly covered in chocolate. Great macro profiles. If you go to skinnydipped.com/mindpump and enter the code mindpump, you'll get 20% off. Then Justin talked about his questionable call at his kid's baseball game.
Yeah.
We talked about the 737 MAX planes getting grounded and New York City public schools having meatless Mondays. And then I talked about how there's a lot of seafood fraud going on, apparently. Then we get into the fitness part of this episode. The first fitness question was, what are our thoughts on the Turkish Getup? This is an old school exercise, a lot of debate around it. Some people saying it's worthless, and other people saying it's a very functional movement that everybody should do. You get to hear our opinion, which is the right opinion, and that part of the episode. The next question, what are the benefits of doing isometric exercises? Like, why would you do isometric exercises? This is when you hold...
mainly for the look on your face.
That's it. This is when you hold a position and squeeze your muscles, so you're not flexing, you're not relaxing, you're just tensing and holding a position. Are there benefits to doing this form of exercise? The next question, do we feel that social isolation is becoming a health problem or a health concern? We talk a lot about tech in that part of this episode, and we talk a lot about how kids may be encountering some problems with socialization. And the final question, we all give our number one failure that has taught all of us our greatest lessons. Also, this month, MAPS Aesthetic, our bodybuilding, physique competitor, bikini competitor inspired program. This is the program, by the way, where you can take your body, look in the mirror, and choose where you want to sculpt and shape your body and put that in the program. We help design it that way for you. Very effective at building and shaping the body that you want in an aesthetic way.
Girl, look at that body.
It's 50% off, half off. So here's what you do. Go to mapsfitnessproducts.com. Use the code BLACK50, BLACK50 for that discount. By the way, there are other MAPS programs on that site and bundles where we combine multiple MAPS programs. If you're super serious, check out the Super Bundle. It'll get you workouts for the next year. All those can be found at mapsfitnessproducts.com.
It's super.
What TV show was that song you always singing, Justin, earlier?
Which one?
What will we do, baby?
What will we do, baby? Sha-la-la-la.
Yeah, what is that? Is that Family Ties?
Family Ties, yeah.
Family Ties!
You got it.
We're old.
Michael J. Fox.
We are old.
Yeah.
Remember that show? Do you guys ever watch that, Family Ties?
I vaguely remember.
You were growing pains. You like growing pains.
Dude. I did like growing pains.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Kirk Cameron.
Kirk Cameron. That's what it was.
I had a crush on his sister. What's her name?
She did the Sprint commercials.
Something Cameron. She was something else. She's not even there to try. I don't know why I liked her.
The dark brown. Oh no, I'm thinking of Who's the Boss.
Wait. Oh, Alyssa Milano.
Yes, that's
Please.
Her. Yes.
Do you know who I had the biggest crush on though? That was on TV when I was a kid.
Who?
I don't even know what her name is. She was the girl.
It's just the commercial girl. The double mint girl.
Yeah. No, it is a commercial.
Hair,
I'll give you one more chance.
Or blonde.
I'll give you one more chance to find out to pick out who it was.
The double mint.
It was a commercial.
Yeah.
She did have dark hair. That's all the hints you're gonna get.
Jesus, that's all I get.
Trust me, because once I say
it was Winnie from what was that?
Wonder Years.
Wonder Years.
No, that's a commercial.
No, commercial. Give him a commercial.
If I say it, you guys are gonna freak out because I guarantee you both loved her too.
The product. You think it'll give it away that much?
100%.
Wow.
Was it
100%.
80s or 90s?
She did that.
It was like 90s. It was like mid-90s.
She did that good of a job?
Every guy talked about her, and nobody knew her name.
Can we get an idea? Is it
we
like-
referred to her as the
Model.
girl.
Wow.
The something girl.
Wow.
Was
really?
it the one girl that was in Whitesnake video?
No,
dude, a
where are you
commercial.
going? Commercials. I'm thinking products right now. I'm going, is it
like specific
Is
commercials.
it an alcohol beverage? Is it a fast food restaurant?
It's something for your skin.
Something for your skin.
Noxzema.
Ooh, close.
Ah.
The oil of
It's the
Olay?
Neutrogena girl.
Oh, Neutrogena.
No, I don't remember.
Yes, you do. Yes,
I
you
knew
do.
this was gonna be
we
random.
just totally jerked off to different things when we were kids.
totally
brother.
No, we all
Yeah.
jerked off to the same thing.
Yeah.
Doug,
If you said
look
that,
up just literally Google the Neutrogena girl. I think
The
that's her.
Neutrogena girl.
You'll remember if you see her face,
I
you're all gonna
probably
freak
will.
out.
No, I
Is
probably
that
will.
her? No, that's not it. It's not
Wow.
Nikki Taylor. Am I saying the wrong thing?
Nikki Taylor is
You might be.
Am I saying no? The Neutrogena. Try that. Watch N-U-T whatever. I don't know how to spell it. Just go ahead and spell it. Google will fix it for you.
It's a made-up name.
That girl in the middle with the curly hair.
Oh!
Noxzema. You were right, Justin. Did you say Noxzema?
Yeah, I did say Noxzema.
The Noxzema girl. Remember her?
I do kind of remember
I do
her.
win.
See, I knew you jerked off to her.
I don't
Good Lord.
Everybody did.
Everybody.
Anyway, speaking of the 90s, I went to the mall with Jessica the other day. We went to not Santana Row, but what's across the street? Valley Fair. And we're walking around, and we walk inside some stores to go shopping. And I swear to God, bro, I felt like I walked into 1996 in some of these. So the younger stores were like like younger girls and they're like teens, 20s, whatever shop. Bro, the mannequins were dressed like Empire Records or like the
What?
Crap. It was like straight up, bro. The plaid skirts back.
That's coming back?
Plaid skirts everywhere.
Thank you.
The shoes with the round toe, the chokers. It was all 90s, dude. It's all back.
It is.
It's all back. Yeah. So you can pull out your Jenko. No, actually, I don't know if those are back in style, but
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
That's how you know when you've gotten old officially, because you've seen
you've seen go out of style and come back in style.
Yes.
The flannel's like wrapped around the waist thing, you know,
Yep.
like Bill and Ted and all that, like in the shredded kind of shirts. I've seen some holy stuff, like holy jeans and shirts are a little rugged these days.
What 90s style do you hope doesn't come back? Can you guys think of one?
I think it's all mostly came back. Remember the slap wrist bracelets?
Oh yeah.
was that really in though? At any
Yeah,
point?
it was cool for a minute there.
Fourth, fifth grade.
Yeah. Remember, you know what I saw?
sorry,
Ben Greenfield had a guest. I made a comment on his Instagram, who had the Chums. Remember Chums?
Oh yeah.
You put them on your Oakleys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you wear 'em. You always wear your necklace, or you wear your glasses around your chest all the time
Yeah.
with your Chums.
I remember that.
Remember those flipped up visors, like all the douchebags would like spike their hair and then put like a visor backwards.
Oh God, I was that guy, dude.
Did you really?
you were.
Of course, I had it. This was during.
Did you bleach your tips or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I shared
the
my
frosty tips. That was huge.
It's fucking in, bro.
Yeah.
Easy there. God, you guys are the nerdy guys. You weren't cool. Nobody would do your frosty tips. You know what I'm saying? You needed some hot cheerleader girl to do your frosty tips. So fuck you.
Wow.
Wait, did you really? Did you have a girl do it for
Of
you?
course, you had a girl do
Who
something.
did it for you?
Probably
girl
my
you were
girlfriend. Probably the girl I was dating at that time. That was popular though, to do the frost the top of the head like that. So I had the visor that you would flip upside down and wear backwards, and then spike it like we were going out to play some beach volleyball or
And
some
you
shit.
hang out with like three of your buddies, and you'd all dance the same and sing together.
Yeah.
How about that Mark Mastroff story that he told about his son going and learning how to dance before he goes to the dance and being hella good?
All on an app.
Yeah, I thought that was
Like
pretty.
mastered on. I was like, dude, that's so awesome.
I used to watch. You know where I would watch to get dance moves, which by the way was terrible.
Dude, that reminds me of Napoleon Dynamite, though. Remember where he's like, he watches a video and then all of a sudden presents it out? I feel like that was what Mark Mastroff's son did.
Well, you have so much great information now, because when I was a kid, you know where we learned? I would watch In Living Color.
Yeah.
In Living Color, which
The
sometimes
Fly Girls.
Yeah, they would have some dance moves, and you'd have to pick out the guy ones or whatever that did. But otherwise,
They didn't really have it.
Otherwise, where did we
I
learn?
could just see Sal
yeah.
doing this.
Doing the boob shake.
Yeah.
Where did we learn how to dance back when we were kids? What was on TV?
Dude, Michael
MTV
Jackson.
videos. You had a lot of
All day.
MTV videos. Remember when MTV first came on the scene? It was all music videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
man,
turned
you're
into trash TV now, and I think that it fell out of favor. Well, it fell out of favor for our generation that probably started with it. I missed that era. Like I still am surprised, especially with TV screens and cars and stuff, that we haven't got to this where now with your music you automatically get the music video that would also play.
Dude, it's funny. I could think of like 3 or 4 like main artists that I totally was like trying. Of course, these are the ones with the best dance moves, like impossible ones, and I'm trying to like figure it out. Like Michael Jackson, I had like Bobby Brown, I had like MC Hammer. And then what was the other one? I think it was James Brown. I was like trying to like reconstruct like some of their main. I couldn't do any of them.
Is there something going around right now with Bobby Brown? I've been sent like 3 different DMs. I told you my buddy sent me the Bobby Brown thing this morning. Is it like his birthday or some shit?
Is that the video you showed us where he's dancing?
Yeah, he had like a cocaine that he just grabbed off.
I don't remember. It was in 1989. Is that when it was? 1989. He's dancing at the MTV Awards. And he drops a bag of cocaine, and it's like a big bag of cocaine.
Like on national television.
Yes. And he just picks it. I didn't even know that. I remember watching that as a kid, but I don't remember that.
Dude, nobody covered that. Like nobody, like that must have just been something that like surfaced recently.
Bro,
right?
you didn't have the internet, which back then where you could like take that clip and replay it a million times.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like
break
if
it down.
you watched it once, if you missed it. That was
Right. No, and speaking of stuff like that, I just don't recall it being like this. After Sal introduced us to the Waco, Texas, documentary.
Oh, that's
on
great.
Prime.
Oh my! And
that's
I
a
went
great
home the
documentary.
next day and binged it with Katrina because it was so good. And the thing that I disciplined myself not to go Googling all the answers and how it played out and just reading too deep into it, because I was actually really interested in how the documentary unfolded from what I remembered it as. And what blew me away was I totally got the story wrong, or what I should say the FBI wanted to give the news media at that time. I was way off. And so, man, that was a really fascinating documentary for me to watch, because I remember it very vividly when it went on, but I also remember watching it when it went on, and the information that the news was giving you was what they wanted to feed you back then versus all the behind the scenes stories that you don't find out till you watch the documentary.
Well, think about where the news would get their information from. They would interview the FBI agents. Hey, what's going on?
Right.
But that's one of the biggest black eyes on the FBI that ever.
Man.
It's like one of the worst things ever happened. We had so many people
terrible.
die doing that. So anyway, crazy story. So I told you guys my daughter started running for, like, it's called Girls on the Run.
Marathon, right?
It's like a 5K.
Okay.
So she's 9, right? So she's doing this Girls on the Run thing, and she's now done it like 3 times. And yesterday we're sitting there, and she's watching TV, and she gets up, and she's like, ah! I'm like, what's the matter, honey? She's like, my legs hurt so bad. Something's wrong with them. I'm like, they're sore. And I was laughing so hard. I'm like, your legs are sore. So she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you don't run ever that long. It's your first time ever doing it. So I'm taking her through stretches and stuff. And
how crazy is that? The first time you make that connection, right?
When you're a kid and you get real sore.
Well, do you? I mean, I know you guys remember this. You remember training clients that were so unathletic that they had never felt that in their life before.
Oh, they think something happened. Like,
they never played sports or anything, and they think you injured them or some shit. They come to you and they're like, I could barely get out of my chair yesterday. Yeah, like, I think you hurt something.
Like their neck just from doing crunches.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I can't even move my neck.
Yeah, I remember once one of my very first workouts when I was 13 or 14, my legs got so sore I stayed home from school. I remember I woke up in bed, no joke. I woke up and I was in bed and I could barely move my legs, and so I was calling out to my mom. She comes in and I'm like, I can't move my legs. She's like, what, dude, what's wrong? She freaked out, of course, and I could barely walk, so I stayed home from school that day. Ridiculous. But so what I did with my daughter is, because I'm taking my son through a workout, so I told her, I said, what'll help is if you work out a little bit with me.
Oh, that was the video you sent.
Yes.
I was just talking shit about kids. And then you sit over.
Is that funny?
Sal was sharing how much he was paying for fucking private school. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's like 2 of my car payments. Jesus, dude.
But anyway, I had my we'd have a treadmill in the garage now, so she was walking on that. I was lifting weights with my son, then I was doing some exercises with my daughter. And then I was talking to her about, proper nutrition after you work out, it can help you recover or whatever. So I gave them the smoothie because it's really good. And you know what it reminded me of? So I got this, someone sent me a study in my DM, and it was a study done on egg consumption and protein synthesis. So protein synthesis, and trust me, this all ties together. Protein synthesis measures kind of the muscle building process, and you see it spike post-workout, and certain types of foods that you eat post-workout will cause it to spike more or less. And now we've always been told post-workout you want to have just protein and maybe carbs. You definitely don't want to have fat because it prevents the absorption or the assimilation of proteins and carbohydrates. And this is what we all believed. And this is a great example of how the fitness industry has really gotten something wrong, and now we believe it to be true, but it's not. So the studies come out showing that whole egg protein is far more anabolic, and I'm putting in quotations, than egg white protein post-workout. You get way more protein synthesis if you eat a whole egg. And, of course, the whole egg includes a lot of the fats and then, of course, the cholesterol. Right, and so the smoothie box drinks were perfect because it's got carbs, proteins, and it's got the healthy fats.
Yeah, it's got that collagen protein.
And it makes sense to me. Like, if the body's going to respond to food post-workout, and I know it's a small effect and we shit on it in the past, but if you're a high-level athlete, this might make a little bit of a difference, especially if you're going to work out more than once during the day. My opinion, the body evolved eating proteins usually with fats. I can't think of a natural source of protein that doesn't include some form of fat. And most hunter-gatherer societies, when they do get a source of protein like an animal, they go for the fat. They eat the fat first because it's so energy dense and and it's got lots of nutrients in it oftentimes, especially the organs. So the smoothie box smoothies are just the balanced. They got the fats, they have the proteins, they have the carbs. It's all healthy.
Well, speaking
and the
of
kids like
what's
it.
their preference out of the three?
My daughter likes the cacao one.
Yeah,
the cacao one is.
I can see that.
Yeah, her favorite. And
I'll add
a little bit of honey to it to make it a little sweeter sometimes, and it's good. It's got vegetables in it, which is they wouldn't know.
There's a high amount of vegetables.
They would have no idea.
Speaking of fats, you guys see the newest skinny dipped that's coming out?
No,
Yes,
what do you mean?
no, the mint.
Dark chocolate mint.
I'm excited about this.
Oh, you guys
mint is my favorite flavor.
Oh, great.
Probably.
Like I really need it, but yeah, dude, I love mint. That mint chocolate, like a dark chocolate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
it's a great combo.
Were you a mint chocolate chip ice cream guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
it was
of
either that, and then I don't know, somewhere down the line, it was between that, and I got competitive between that and like chocolate and peanut butter.
Well,
so
what I've loved about the skinny dipped is and I think this comes a little bit from Doug. Like Doug is the dark chocolate guy. He's always been the dark chocolate guy, and I've never really been a dark chocolate eater. And as I've gotten after competing, I really started to curb a lot of my crazy sweet addiction that I had. And if I just have a piece of that every once in a while, it really satisfies that craving. And I feel the same way about the skinny dipped almonds. I feel like it's a light treat where I get this chocolate flavor. I know, I know. Obviously, it's got some extra calories in there that my diet doesn't necessarily need. But if I'm having that sweet tooth craving, it's the perfect thing for me to curb that without indulging. And that's why I also like the single packs. Like I won't buy I made the mistake the first time and ordered like the big bags.
Yeah, that's the move.
And that for sure, because what I'll do is we'll watch it. We'll be mindlessly eating because I'll be watching the fucking TV, and I'll grab that bag and then I'll just keep going to town. The next thing you know, I've drilled half of that thing or all of it. Where if I do the individual packs, I just go get it out of the freezer.
And it's just enough chocolate. It's not. You guys ever eat like?
That's what I mean.
You ever eat like the cheapo chocolate almonds? They're like
it's all chocolate, a little bit of almond.
Yeah, it's like where's the almond? You're basically eating chocolate balls over here, which is fine if that's what you want to do.
Dude, so I've already planned out, bringing those for our snacks, that we're bringing to the games for the kids. Like between that and like some fruit. Like I've already had that planned out, so they're gonna love that.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
How is your coaching going on over there?
Crazy. Like I'm actually really digging it now that like we've laid down kind of a good foundation with the kids. Like had a lot of the skills that we've been drilling on them, and this was their first game was last night. And
how'd they do? Did they win?
They won. Yeah,
Oh,
they won, and it was like. It was a really close game, and so it's funny because there's no like umpires, and so there's no like field umpires, there's no like umpire behind the plate, and we're using a pitching machine now, but the coach will throw it, and then the kids will throw it. So it's like this evolution where they'll learn too, like how to steal bases and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm third base coach. And I'm just like sending everybody in, like totally overzealous, like trying to rack up our points, and like, no, you can't send them in when they have it like in the infield and like the play's dead or whatever. And I was like, it wasn't dead yet, So anyway, I was already like, not doing well on the side of I was right behind me. Obviously, was the other team, so. The game kind of kept progressing, and I didn't even know what the score was because I was used to like with kids, like initially, like you somebody's keeping track, but it's like nobody really gives a shit. But now they give a shit. Like everybody's like really into this, and they're like, I guess it was like 6-5, and the bases were loaded, and one of them scored, from third, and coming running towards me was my son, right?
Oh no!
So he's running. I didn't know it was him. He's running towards me. They throw the ball. The third baseman catches it and then tags him. Well, in my eyes, he tags him, right? Everybody else on our sidelines was like, safe, and like the coaches are looking at me because like I'm closest, so I have to make the call.
And it's your son.
And it's my son. And I was just like looking down, and I'm looking back, and then I'm listening to, and I actually waited a minute, and I like asked the third, I'm like, you tag him? And he's like, yeah, I tagged him. And then like Ethan's like, you didn't tag me. And I'm like, oh shit. And then I was just like, you're out.
Hella mad at you later on, or
yeah,
what?
dude, I got nothing but shit from that forever. And my mom was in the stands. She's like, how could you?
Actually,
I was like, oh no.
Actually, you did the right thing.
Yeah,
because it's
I didn't want
worse
to
the
play
other way.
favorites.
it's
dude.
better to be harder on your.
I always am. See, that's the thing. I need to hear that though, because like even court, like everybody's like, dude, like, but it's your kid, Like I'm like, yeah, but that's why he's out.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like you got to work for it, bro.
That's right. You should have ran faster.
Yeah,
so it wasn't even close.
Next time, if it's not close, then you're fine.
It's also going to set up a great conversation, I'm sure, on the way home, where you could talk to him about it and all that.
Totally, but he had a couple great plays, so I was just like, like it's nice because like I've been putting so much work, with him, like as far as like the outside, like we're working on his mechanics and like throwing, and like I am just now starting to see like progress.
Oh, that's so great.
I'm so happy and like stoked for him.
Now, does Everett play with him? Do they go back and forth at home and play catch and stuff, or no?
Kind of, not yet. Like mainly the hitting stuff. Like I caught him like outside, like going back and forth, and like Ethan was setting up the tee for Everett, and it was like going back and forth. So that was really cool to see. Everett has a game tonight, so so I'm excited. But
you know what that reminds me of? It's like when I used to have big staffs, there would always be like one or two superstars. Like, yeah, you'd have some good performers, but there's that one person that really led the team and was really good, and you would get close to them, and I would always make sure to be extra hard on them in front of everybody so that they don't get that impression like, oh, he's Sal's favorite or she's Sal, whatever. So I had to show everybody like, no, like he actually gets it harder than everybody else.
Well, it's funny though, because the head coach, like he's a friend of mine, is just like, dude, but we're down right now. We could have used that because like we had to take away that score, that tied it up.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh no, I hope we win, dude. This isn't my fault,
So
So the next one, like we got like a bunch of runs, so I was fine.
Katrina was at her nephew's game this Saturday. They played a basketball game, and it was like his first game that she'd seen him. Now, in her family, all the girls are like the badass athletes. The guys are athletes too, but the girls are all the ones that went to college playing basketball and shit like that.
Oh, and they're young. They're great.
Yeah, and so this is her brother's son is now playing basketball. And I asked her when I came home, I said, hey, how did Nathaniel do? Did he kill it or what? She's like, he did all right. She'd be all like totally political, right? I'm just like, what do you mean all right? Like you're the basketball person of the family. Like tell me, what did you see? Is he going to be gifted at this or what? And she's like, well, I think Larry needs to work with him more. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? She's like, well, she goes, I just didn't realize that it would be someone in our family. He was running around without his hands up. I mean, what do you mean running around with his hands up? She's like, yeah, he was playing defense with his hands down. Which, I'm talking to her, and we're both going like, that's just like a natural thing that you had. You just know to put your hands up. And she's like, he's doing a lot of things. She said that, you would just think being in the family that we all played basketball forever, that he would just naturally have, but he hasn't been trained the fundamentals.
That's it.
Man, I've been going through that.
I bet that's why that's why I'm sharing this, because I know what you're going through. I get it now, kind of listening to her share like her frustration of watching it, and she was kind of like getting onto her brother, like, dude, you got to fucking teach him, like the basic
every step of the process,
like even boxing out, like the ball goes up, and teaching him how to box out. Well, okay, she finally gets him to teach him how to box out. Well, he boxes out, but then the ball falls right in front of him. He doesn't grab it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so it's like it's every step of the way you have to teach these very basic fundamentals, and some kids naturally get it, because she was like, her and I were trying to speculate on like, why do you think he doesn't have it? And maybe you did and I did and things like that. I said, well, Nathaniel is really heavily into like gaming, video gaming and YouTubing. Even though he plays all the sports and he's talented, he's athletic, he's not really into watching it. And I said, you don't realize how much
you learn by watching.
Yes, how much education you get by watching NBA. When I was in third and fourth grade, I was already watching the NBA.
Yeah, try getting on YouTube with that kid and watch what he does, and try going online and watch.
Try understanding.
Instead he's watching the video game stuff, which is what he's drawn to right now for his entertainment. And I said, see, back when we were kids, we didn't have a lot of those things. The big things were watching sports, and so you watched a lot. So you emulated your favorite players, So now, talk about a challenge for fathers now that would assume that, like you and I probably...
like you go play baseball with your buddies all the time. Now I'm going to teach you some other things about it. It's like he hasn't even learned the basics.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I had a conversation with my ex-wife the other day because she's like, oh, I went through, our son's phone, and I go through it every once in a while, and doesn't seem to be anything on there that's bad, and I start cracking up. Like, you really think we're gonna find shit on his phone? That kid knows more about tech and how to hide stuff and how to do stuff than probably the tech experts that work at your company, because these kids grow up with that stuff. You know what I mean? That's what they know. The stuff that we grew up knowing, like how to jump with your bike on a ramp. They don't know how to do that shit because nobody does that.
How to dial a phone.
No,
that's true.
It totally reminded me of when Justin first shared, when he was first teaching him how to catch the ball, just like how you would think something as obvious as...
Yeah, you think it's intuitive.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, no, you do. So that's what she was sharing that with me. A lot of things that we would just think is intuitive to playing ball that he just neglects to do. And he said, you could see he plays other sports, so he's an athletic kid, so he has the potential to be good.
Right.
But he's like clueless to the fundamentals. And it's like,
no, there's natural aptitude, but then there's also learned. You have to learn on top of it. So there are kids who are have better mechanics naturally, but you got to learn. And if you don't learn, then you're not going to know anything. Like, you're not going to. Like, here's the thing. I remember as a kid going to Italy when I was 11 or 12, and one of my buddies bought like a rubber ball, and we were throwing it. And I'm an 11-year-old, 12-year-old, but I'm from America, and in America, most of the popular sports are done with your hands. In Italy, they play soccer. So we're throwing the ball. These kids, I remember watching them throw, and I'm laughing at them, like, these guys can't even throw. But you give them the ball to kick, and you watch these kids dribble with their feet and kick the ball. And it's because the skills were just practiced differently over there. They knew how to handle with their feet, whereas over here, everything's done with their hands. Anyway, did you guys see what Trump just did, like literally hours ago?
I saw you message us in our thread about the 737.
He just grounded all the Boeing 737s.
Why?
So there were two crashes that happened. I don't remember where the first one happened, but I know the second one happened in Ethiopia. And they were 737s, basically brand new. These are Boeing planes. And basically took off. Minutes later, nosedive, crashed. And both crashes were very similar. And so you had all these airline regulators throughout the world, Canada, the UK, China, grounding them because of some of the news reports, and they're saying there may be something wrong with this plane. Well, the U.S. is the only country that didn't ground them, but it looks like they just got new information, and they're they've just grounded them all.
Well, that's interesting.
That's crazy.
Like, statistically, like planes that crash, I mean, that's a very low percentage, right?
Extremely rare. But could you imagine if they found something actually wrong with the plane itself?
Well, that's why that makes sense. That's alarming that if they've already had like that specific model has done that and like just gone up and straight back down. That's pretty.
I feel like they're being very conservative just to be safe.
Yeah.
But Boeing is going to lose so much money. I mean, if you own airplanes and you're an airliner, or
are you following the stock right now?
I'm not following it at all. I haven't seen what I'm pretty sure it's plummeting. I don't see why it wouldn't.
So how many total did they put a number out there of the Boeing planes
that they've grounded?
Yeah.
There's quite a few. Like Southwest has a lot of these planes.
Yeah, I was just like, is this like everybody's flights are fucked?
A lot of people's flights are probably screwed.
Dang.
But
that many?
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Oh.
But I mean, this is crazy because first of all, when you have a business like airplanes, like that's a major fear people have, right? But planes are very safe. All you need is a little bit of a rumor or whatever, and you're screwed. Look at that 9. What was that 9 in Detroit alone? Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gnarly. I thought it was like some new development, like terrorist related thing or something.
No, it was just literally they're getting more information, but it's like the plane literally just like they couldn't control it.
Yeah.
They have recordings from the pilots, and they were struggling to just control, like something just happened and it just went down. So it's crazy. It's the 737-8 and the 737-9 planes.
That is going to hurt their business.
Yeah, I think it's how many planes does it say in that article, Doug? Like 302 or something like that. I mean, it's
total.
It's going to cause some problems. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's going to cause some travel problems. I don't know exactly how many, but nonetheless, pretty crazy.
It looks like it messed up 302 flights.
Yeah. We might have some cheap tickets coming up though.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Or great times to buy in some companies. I mean, all these companies are going to take probably a big hit, and then the rebound of some of these companies like Southwest and Boeing and stuff like that on the way, because Boeing's a great stock. Period.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
It's a company that's been around forever.
It says 385
flights or planes.
Planes, I believe. That's quite a bit. 344, the Max 8 variant, the ones that crashed.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. Also, more news. Did you guys see New York City public schools are doing
the vegan day,
Meatless Monday?
Yeah, I saw that.
What a dumb political, it's all posturing, virtue signaling. Oh, we're so, they're still eating meat Tuesday through Friday, but we're Mondays we don't eat meat, and supposedly that's healthy, except things like potato chips, French fries, and bread and cinnamon rolls.
I was gonna say, where's your carb-free day?
And it's still dumb. It's so dumb.
Why wouldn't they do that then? That's how I feel. I feel like I'm not opposed to it, but then throw in the other days, and I think it'd be.
Why do you think? Why do you think New York City? First of all, consider the politics of New York.
Right.
Why do you think the public schools would have a Meatless Monday? It's 100% virtue signaling. Hey, look at us. We're so we care so much. It's better for the environment. It's better for animals. So we're going to give all the kids no meat on Mondays. I would love to see the food that they're actually going to serve them on Mondays instead.
It had a picture of it. I saw the article. It didn't have a picture of it. Doug, maybe you can see what they're
probably going to be like a soy sandwich or something like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Boys going through developing breasts at the age of 8. Because of all the soy that they're eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crap. One more article that I'll share with you guys. I had no idea. This is Jackie shared this. That apparently there's a lot of seafood fraud in the United States. I didn't even know this existed. Have you guys heard of this?
Fake seafood?
Well, like food that comes in that says it's a regional favorite, but in reality it's not locally sourced. It's from far away. Or seafood, that says sea bass that's actually a different fish, a lower value species.
Oh, wow.
So literally
like tilapia.
Well, dude, there was a report that came out that showed that 1 in every 5 fish that they tested was mislabeled.
Whoa.
1 out of every 5.
1 out of every 5. That's huge.
Yeah. 1 out of every 3 establishments visited sold mislabeled seafood. How crazy is that? So you could be, this is sea bass, but they're giving you tilapia or some shit.
Now, I would think where we're at, that's less common. Being by the bay, being access to north, I would think that I saw they had a map and they showed the regions that it was most popular. I would think it would be more central, right?
One of them's in California. But Southern California.
Yeah, near Mexico.
Yeah, look like LA, San Diego area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of infuriating, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're going to buy something, you think you get one thing, you're getting something else. That's pretty annoying.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's not completely similar, but I remember Taco Bell, they got under fire for the horse meat thing, right? Was that confirmed or not?
No, I don't think they had horse meat, did they? No,
I believe there was some urban. I don't know.
I brought up the horse meat thing in the book that I'm currently reading right now with the mob rules.
That's what it was. And not Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Are you sure, dude? I'm pretty sure they're under fire for some meat.
Hey, don't get us sued, Justin.
Yeah, retract.
No, just look it up.
No, what happened with Taco Bell was that their meat wasn't all meat. It wasn't 100% meat.
Well, what was the other part?
I think oh shit, look at that. Maybe you're right. That's 2013.
Thank you.
Food safety officials say they have found traces of horse meat and ground beef sold by fast food restaurant
Taco Bell
in Britain. Oh, okay. There's one place in Britain.
Over there.
That's
fine.
all right.
Yeah,
at least
it didn't affect us.
Yeah,
the mob's still over there.
yeah. Fuck, man.
Eagle has landed.
Today's Squad is brought to you by Maps Anabolic. If you're looking to maximize your overall muscle and strength, Matt's Anabolic is the perfect place to start. With a full 30-day money-back guarantee, there is absolutely zero risk. So what are you waiting for? Go to mindpumpmedia.com and get started today.
It's the motherfucking quad.
Eagle has landed.
All right, our first question is from Keisha Brittany. What are your thoughts on Turkish get-ups?
Turkish Getup. Who was it that was talking
I like
shit
him.
about
Jordan
Turkish
Shallow,
Dr. Shallow.
our boy.
What doesn't he talk shit about?
He's
that guy.
he's in the strength camp. You know what I'm saying? I think that for the most part, he did a post the other day. Did you see the post he did? He did a post where he was.
He said weak people don't get hurt.
Yeah,
or something like that.
Yeah. So he made a strong stance on that, and so I got a lot of DMs actually from that. People asking me, "What do you think about this? What do you think about?" I said, I know where Jordan's coming from and why he's saying this. I think for the most part, most humans don't strength train enough in general. I know that there's this, functional movement culture that's happening right now, and you're getting a lot of gurus in that space. And I think he represents the antagonist to that.
Yeah, he checks him well.
Yeah,
sure.
and I love it. So I love where he's coming from. That same token, he can find himself in that, be the strongest gorilla in the jungle mentality also. That I think that there's, and what I wrote underneath his post is exactly how I feel. I was like, the truth is that
He hasn't felt old man pains yet. So,
right.
I'm waiting
the truth
for that.
is there's many truths.
And there's also he works a lot with athletes. He works with people who perform at a high level. I've trained very few high level athletes. Most of the people I've trained were just your everyday people. And let me tell you, correctional exercise, if done properly, and of course, strength is always the goal. That's important to understand. This is the thing Jordan, understands very well and explains very well. Strength is the ultimate goal. You have to, but correctional exercise many times is the way you can get to strength, especially when you're talking about an average person.
Exactly. That's where it matters the most, in my opinion. And he's right. Like when you're talking about athletes. I remember when Brink first brought that to our attention when we first met Brink. When he said, what do you do when you have a pro fighter or pro wrestler guy or pro anything, and he's got all these imbalances and he's fucked up. Like he's like, oh, you can't try and fix that on him because he's already become so great at compensating for that if you were to try and fix the imbalance, you would fuck up his mechanics that he's built for the last 15, 20 years of becoming a pro. So I totally understand where he's getting from. Now, the whole reason why we brought up Jordan was because he shit on the Turkish get-ups. And again, for an athlete that has very specific goals, I don't see as much carryover for that. But for the average person, man, I got somebody stopping by to see me today. She drops in every once in a while to say hi and kind of check on her movement and look over her food. And she's been a long-time client friend of mine. One of my favorite things that I make her do is I tell her, I say, listen, if you're not going to do anything else, get in there and do 10 Turkish get-ups on each side with your little kettlebell thing that I've got you. And if you perform it right and correct, it's such a great full body movement that, it's got rotational stuff in there. You hit all the planes when you're in there. It requires good shoulder mobility. It requires good hip mobility. It's a one catch-all exercise to promote all those things. And you can load it so it can be somewhat of a strength. Now, can you ever compare a 100-pound Turkish get-up to a guy like Jordan squatting 600 pounds? Like, no, fuck no. Like, it's not even in the same universe. But for the average day person who you're trying to promote good movement, oh man, it's
a different discipline. This is like a coordinated, structured array of movements that we're trying to string together. So it's very much more highlighted as a skill. So this is like these are a sequence of movements that I'm trying to string together. Now, can I do that and think of that in terms of like my sport? Can I think of that in terms of like, well, how am I going to move this object from down here all the way upstairs and be able to hold this while I'm, there's a lot of like multitasking kind of variables thrown at you on a daily basis. And I think that this is one of those where it's just like, okay, let's slow everything down. Let's work on the intention of movement and being really in tune with my body and having like ultimate command over my body.
There's some recent studies that connect your ability to get up off the ground without having to use your hands to your chances of all-cause mortality.
Right.
And that's a skill. That's a skill that we lose as we get older because we sit on chairs. It's a fundamental skill, being able to get up off the ground. In a Turkish get-up, that's literally what you're doing. There's a technique to it, but you are getting up off the ground. The other thing, too, is because of the extended position of the Turkish get-up, you have to learn how to brace your entire body and build stability in your entire body from your hand all the way down your shoulder to your back, to your hips, to your knees, your ankles, everything, and be very, very tight. And I'll put this challenge out there to anybody. You get your client or you yourself get good, and I mean good. I don't mean good at you could do a million of them. I mean with good form, good control, good stability. Get really, really good at doing Turkish get-ups. You're probably going to have decent mobility and you're probably going to be relatively pain-free throughout your entire body. It's not a specific exercise. Like, it's not going to develop any one particular part of your body. It's not this great hypertrophy exercise, but it is one of those exercises that leads you to getting better results from other exercises. Okay, so when you look at movements, when you look at exercises, some exercises are very effective at building muscle and building strength. Other exercises are very effective at getting you to the point where you can build lots of muscle and lots of strength. And the Turkish get-up is kind of one of those. Like, if you do really, really good Turkish get-ups, you probably have good shoulder mobility and stability to be able to do heavy overhead presses. You could probably do at least a lunge, if not a squat. You probably have good core stability, some decent rotation. You're generally in good health over your whole body. Now, that being said, there are athletes that I believe get direct benefit from doing Turkish get-ups. In particular, if you're a grappler or you train in mixed martial arts, your ability to get up off the ground with weight on your body, and there's a lot of technique to this, by the way, so just doing Turkish get-ups is not going to make you good at it because there's a lot of technique involved, so you have to practice that. But that will help you strengthen some of the movements that you need to get up, and that's where this exercise got popular. Turkish get-ups came from the Turkish wrestling tradition. And the Turkish wrestling tradition, those guys have been working out for a long time. Your mace bells and your clubs and stuff, they would use those those devices to build strength. And they had this long tradition of these wrestlers who were incredibly strong. And one guy, I think his name was the Great Gama, I think his name was undefeated for years. And Turkish get-ups was part of their training regime.
I think that's one of those where you could see, like, okay, this could directly sort of translate into those types of movements, and you could see how that would like apply specifically. I think for just somebody that's just powerlifting all the time or doing something that's only in the sagittal plane, like, it's massively beneficial for them just to maintain and keep these communication pathways accessible and like have your joints go through ranges of motion that you're not hitting frequently enough. And so what are we doing? We're setting ourselves up for repetitive pattern injuries as a result of like stressing the same type of movement like consistently. Let's do something different to make sure that everything's oiled and working properly. And this is one of those types of exercises.
I also think, though, it's important. So it reminds me kind of like me practicing the overhead squat right now, an exercise that I probably would not promote in the past, but now I see this major benefit in it because of the work that I've done to get the proper mobility to perform the movement really well. So now that I have the mechanics to actually and the mobility to perform an overhead squat with good form and good technique, now I think it's a staple exercise that I want to keep in my routine forever because I know that it promotes me keeping that stability and that strength and that good mobility that I work so hard to get. I think of the Turkish get-up very similar because if you see someone doing a Turkish get-up, and I have a client who has terrible mechanics and can't do it or has a lot of mobility issues, and all I have them do is these Turkish get-ups that look really sloppy, then I see very little benefits to the movement. But if you do treat it, like Justin said earlier, as a skill, or Sal said, as a skill, and you keep practicing that skill and you get really good at the movement, and you're not thinking about, I'm getting more weight up or I'm doing more reps. You're trying to break each part down, because in the Turkish get-up there's it's like 6 parts or 8 parts. It's broken up in like 6 or 8 parts to complete one full rep. And if you have actually broken up all 6 parts or 8 parts, whatever it is, and focused on making sure that you're doing each one of those perfectly, I think it's a great exercise to always incorporate into your routine to promote that overall good mobility in all these different joints that are having to work in order to get completely up off the ground.
Yeah, this would be an exercise that I would do at the beginning of a workout as part of my priming, getting my whole body ready, or something I would do in the morning when I wake up as part of my just daily activity to wake everything up. It's not an isolation movement. It's not a, again, it's not like it's leg day, I do Turkish get-ups. You use everything with the Turkish get-up.
I've actually recently taught this to also like Taylor, right? I love this move for someone like him who's not into lifting. Like he just doesn't care to be buff. He doesn't want to really change his physique, but he does realize he's getting in his 30s now and that he's going to have to stay mobile. And what I've explained to him is like, you don't need to, if you're not trying to progress your physique, you don't have to be so crazy structured about your programming and follow everything that we're telling everyone to do all the time because you don't care about that. But there are so you can look at your workout differently and pick an exercise or a movement that has lots of benefit and carryover and practice it for the entire hour. So, and I do this also, and I actually promote this with some of my clients that have the same attitude towards working out. Not everybody, there's probably a small percentage of this audience that listens, but there is a percentage that doesn't like to work out. And they don't like to do tons of different exercises, but if they do like working on skills or practicing something and watching themselves progress and get better, these people I feel do really well with an exercise like this. I teach it, and then my job is, hey, the next time I see you, I want to see improvement. I want to see improvement on the skill, and then their whole workout sometimes is just a Turkish get-up. I think there is nothing wrong with doing that, and I have clients and I have people like Taylor's that I've actually introduced a movement like this and taught them to do it, just like I have with the squat or a big or a deadlift or a big movement like that. I think Turkish get-up is right up there and one of the best full body overall movements.
And plus, if you are a high level athlete like a power lifter or a weightlifter or a football player or whatever, the number one obstacle that can prevent you from making any gains or improvements whatsoever, bar none, hands down, is an injury. Hands down. And one of the ways that you can prevent injury is by doing different movements, doing different things, training your body in different ways. So if you're a power lifter, it's probably a good idea to try doing light Turkish get-ups every once in a while to might prevent you from hurting yourself just because you're moving your body differently, doing some yoga or stretching or whatever. So sometimes athletes will look at things and say, that doesn't have any application to me. But, many times it's just the fact that you're moving differently and it's going to help prevent injury, because I know lots of strength athletes, and when you ask them, hey, what's the one thing that kept you from hitting your goals more than anything else, they'll tell you, injured. I got injured, and then that was it. I couldn't work out hard anymore or whatever for 5 months or whatever.
Next question is from Keenan869. What are the benefits of doing isometric exercises such as the ones in MAPS Performance?
Isometric exercises. So I'm going to give a little quick synopsis of how the muscles contract, and then we can talk about isometric movements. So muscle contractions are broken down into 3 categories. There's the concentric contraction. This would be me flexing my bicep, so me curling my arm. There's eccentric, which would be me lowering a weight, because remember, that's a muscle contraction as well. If I'm lowering a weight with control, my muscle's contracting the whole time.
Right, those would just fall.
And then there's isometric, where it's just holding in place. And all 3 of them have their place, and all 3 of them have different levels of damage they can cause and muscle growth that they can stimulate and all that stuff. Now, it's pretty widely known that the eccentric, the lowering of weight, causes the most damage, but also sends the loudest muscle signal. But the problem with eccentric loading is that it just causes so much damage, you can't do it that much. The next one down the line would be the concentric, the positive portion of the rep, that will give you lots of power and performance, give you less damage, which means you could do more of it. This is why you get Olympic lifters who can lift all day long. They drop the weight. They don't lower the weight like a bodybuilder will. So they don't get as much muscle size per se, but they can train a lot. They can train with high volume, high frequency, and they do build a lot of strength. Isometrics are great because they cause I would consider the least amount of damage. This is something that you can use to ramp up the volume in a relatively safe way.
Yeah, they're not going to be as damaging to the joint because, it's very specific to really what it's doing. It's emphasizing the recruitment process of like, okay, I need to tap into this ability to generate force. And so how do we do this? That's one where you could really zero in on the whole process it takes for you to be able to generate the appropriate amount of force for you to then overcome load and go through the full range of motion. So a lot of times I'll use this as a great tool to up the capacity for you to be able to really ramp up the amount of force production you can promote at any given time.
Yeah, I also like isometric movements to focus on sticking points. That's one of my favorite ways actually to use it. So if you work out and you're listening right now, I'm sure you can think of, lifts and sticking points within those lifts. So maybe when you bench press, it's when you get, you come down to your chest, and after about 2 inches of coming up, that's where you tend to stick. Or a squat, typically it's at the bottom of a squat where you tend to stick. And isometric movements are excellent for focusing on those sticking points. And so what you can do, for example, if let's say you do get stuck at the bottom of a squat, is you could get down in the bottom of a squat and tense up your entire body. If you want to take it to the next level, you can actually push against an immovable object, like a weight that's like a bar that's loaded so heavy you can't move it, and you just drive against it doing an isometric contraction. And what that does is it irradiates your body, activates more muscle fibers, and actually improves strength, not just in the position that you're doing the contraction, but in actually a wider range of just that position. So it's, I don't remember how many degrees it is past
15 degrees
in each
on
degree.
each side.
So you actually get a pretty wide range of strength application, and you're not overtraining and burning yourself out, which is great. Like sometimes you're training yourself so hard and kind of you're on that line, and if you just add 2 more sets of regular squats, it's going to be too much. But you want to add a little bit more. Do an isometric. Bodybuilders, by the way, have been doing this for years, for decades, for building muscle. Like the old timers, what they would do at the end of a set is they would pose.
Right.
Posing. If you read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, or you read some of the old bodybuilding magazines, posing was one of their favorite forms of exercise besides lifting weights.
Oh, you saw Bruce Lee do this. After like every set of squats, he would go out and then he would squeeze and irradiate his whole body. And really just promoting more of that overall access to, like I said, the force production of it, so he could bring it back into the squat. Now he feels, more stable and more capable.
That's it. Think about it this way, right? Your central nervous system is what gives you the juice to generate your power. Of course, your muscles are the mechanism that displays that power, but it doesn't matter how big and strong your muscles are if the juice that you're generating through your central nervous system is weak, just like speakers and an amplifier. It's an analogy I've used many times in the past. Well, your ability to generate juice from your central nervous system is something you can improve upon. You can actually get yourself to the point where you might only be tapping into 50% of your capacity. Isometric type training is a much safer way of getting. It's actually, isometric training is one of the safest ways to increase the amount of CNS force production that you can summon.
Well, that's the main way I feel like I use it, or like you would even use it as an athlete. I'll bring up my favorite way to teach, or what I think I've taught the most as far as an isometric movement. I love to take a client who's told me they only feel squats in their quads, and I will do these floor bridges and have them at the top of the bridge squeeze their ass as hard as it and hold that position. And I love it for teaching people on. I'll put them in an area, a deep squat. I'll put them in that position, and then I'll get their posture in the right position, have them hold that. It really helps them to understand where they should be recruiting all this, right? So when you talk about the CNS, doing this floor bridge where I have a client squeeze their butt at the top of the floor bridge and hold that for like 10 seconds and fatigue it, then come down, then come up and squeeze, hold again. Okay, now I've got you understanding the glutes are dominant for this hip hinge movement. We're about to go do that now in a squat position. I want you to think about that in that. It really helps them make that connection when they're performing movements like that.
They asked why they see it in performance too, and I think that something like, the Dumphy squat, for instance, where it's like a stick you're pushing up overhead, like as you're going through that squat and you're getting down into depth, it's exposing where maybe you're losing the bracing mechanism. And so that's something that's a part of the process of we're slowing it down so you're understanding like what you should be feeling even when you're loaded. And these are valid techniques for you to then apply towards all these other programs we have. But this was an opportunity to expose people to other valid training techniques that are out there that will really help. A lot of times it's like a key that was a missing component that, was not in their program prior.
You guys should. So Jackie will hopefully shout out Jackie for always helping out with the show notes and being on top of this stuff. PJ Performance, just 2 posts ago, so it'll probably be 3 or 4 posts ago, was literally around the importance of, in fact, he thinks it's the most important and the first step in any performance type of program or sports training, and he did a really good write-up on that. I love this material that he always puts out.
He's awesome.
Yeah, just 2 posts ago, he literally touched on isometrics in sports training, so those that are curious to that.
It's the forgotten way of exercising that strength athletes used to use quite a bit a long time ago, and it got forgotten for some reason. But there's tremendous.
It's boring. It's not sexy.
Right. Watch a video of someone.
Tough to sell.
Yeah, watch a video of an isometric exercise. It's just someone standing still, right? You can't even tell what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
It is a very safe way of being able to generate more power from your CNS. It's also a very low cost way. And what I mean by cost is cost on your ability to recover. It's a very low cost way of increasing volume to build muscle. And again, bodybuilders have known this for a long time. You talk to top bodybuilders, even today, but especially in the past, after they worked out their chest, they would sit there and just contract and squeeze the shit out of the chest for 15 seconds at a time. Now, I've done this for forever because it always gave me a good pump. Like, you finish your workout at the end of your bicep workout and just squeeze and flex the shit out of your biceps and watch how they feel afterwards. It's amazing. And again, you don't get like crazy soreness from it, so it's something you can add without worrying about having to, dramatically increase the amount of recovery time.
Next question is from Brenda Farias 51. Do you feel social isolation is a growing health concern?
Definitely, 100%.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
There's depression, anxiety on the rise, and it's on the rise very quickly in the younger generations in particular. And, social isolation, I think, is the wrong word because we're definitely still very social in the sense that, we're on social media and we're talking to lots of people.
Physical isolation.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of socializing. It's not the same kind of contact. It's not the same mindful, present type of socializing. When you're with just one person and there's no electronics involved, it's just you and that person. When you're on your phone or on your computer, you're talking to one person, you're talking to another person, you're very distracted. It's not as deep. And here's the thing, we talk about, health problems in modern societies. The biggest one that we're still tackling now is the change of modern societies where we've become very sedentary and we've had access to hyperpalatable foods, and that's caused the obesity epidemic and a lot of our health problems that we see in these modern societies. The next big one is this kind of digital technology wellness. Yeah. It's going to be looking at how we can create practices around technology.
Now, I agree with that. On the direction you're taking this question. But when I think of like this, what I wonder sometimes when we're answering the way we are, and I'm not completely disagreeing with you, I just think that sometimes we sound like the old guys who just are not accepting the new way things are done. And, I wonder if
old guys have a lot of wisdom. Think about all the shit that old guys told you when you were a kid, and you wish you could have listened.
Hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm wondering though is this just going to be the way that we all communicate in the future? It seems ridiculous, but will we communicate in the same room like we are sitting right now? And instead of actually looking at each other and talking to each other, it's actually faster and easier through this digital product that we have because I can.
Hey, maybe, and it probably. Look, again, if you go back 80 years and you show someone, you had food from the future, and you're like, here's a frozen pizza and a whatever pizza pocket, and you're like, hey, most people are going to be eating like this in the future. They'll be like, no way, no one's gonna. And they did, but we have side effects. We have consequences as a result. I'm not debating at all that it's moving in that direction. This is a ship that's not going to turn.
Right.
All I'm saying is this is the new world. And just like today, look, here's the deal. If you want to be active today.
No, I can get behind that, bro.
Yeah.
I can get behind that all day, that this is the direction it's for sure going, and I don't think we're going to stop it, and I think we're going to have to put in practices.
You have to.
I think it's the analogy like why we have gyms, like why we have practices based around like physical activity, because we've figured out how valuable that is. Like we've tried to eliminate hard, laborious jobs, and we've done a really fucking awesome job at that, right?
So
what's the side effect of that?
But the
Less
side
activity.
effect is that we're getting unhealthy and obese, right? So along those lines of like having like person-to-person interactions and real communication where you're connecting to that person, that's a valuable fucking thing.
Dude, you in the past, not that long ago, you couldn't be isolated. You had to at least get out of your house to go to the store.
I feel like there's already practices that are being put in place, and I'm not going to put anybody on Front Street right now, but we've got lots of nerdy podcast friends, right? And almost every one of them we know, especially the very successful ones, have invested in groups that they fucking hang out with. They pay tens of thousands of dollars a year to be a part of a group where they have organized fucking sleepovers and they have organized fucking weekend trips and they have games that they have. It's funny, but for someone like me who's always been social, I look at them and I kind of snicker, but I get it though. I get that you're talking about the people that I'm thinking about right now were buried in books, were buried in tech already at a very early age. I mean, I was a kid who didn't get a computer until I was in college. Yeah. I didn't have a computer growing up, so that like I didn't have these resources, I didn't have these tools, I didn't have these addictive things.
Dude, it's no different than me telling my great grandfather, every day I spend an hour working out, lifting heavy things and putting them down. He would laugh his ass off and be like, "You do what?" He goes, "I just go to work." Yeah. That's how I'm active. It's the same thing. Here's a great example. I'll tell you what. When I was a kid, my parents never had to schedule play dates. You fucking played with your friends. Today,
I think that's why it makes my skin crawl.
Today, you schedule play dates. Yeah. That is a practice that has already happened. It's already been created by parents, because if you don't create a play date, your kids don't play.
So that's going back to my point again that sometimes we sound like the old men that are, the sky is falling, right? I think that it is becoming a growing concern. I also think there's already things in place that we're doing to counteract that, because when the era that I originally grew up in, if you needed to pay $10,000 a year to hang out with a group of friends just to get you to fucking be social and network with each other, I think that's ridiculous. But that's also coming from somebody who I didn't lose that skill. I had that skill. I had to develop that skill as a kid. So I get it, and I get why play dates have to happen now. So is it really that much of a concern, or are we pretty smart freaking monkeys and we'll probably start to do things to counter that, and it's already happening?
It might take a few generations, just like it took a few generations to learn about smoking, and it's taking us more generations to learn about activity and food. I think that the trends happen fast. Look, let me put it this way, okay? Nobody had a fucking cell phone in their hand 25 years ago. Very few people did, right? Yeah. Today, everybody has cell phones everywhere. We're talking about 20 years. They're all over the place, and people are super, super connected. That is a very, very fast trajectory. The practices that follow happen as a consequence, and those practices are always a step or two behind. And the practices don't happen until people see widespread problems. So I'm not saying the world, the sky is falling, but what I am saying is us being in health and wellness, us being in fitness, we see the writing on the wall. And we're the first ones to really talk about this as a wellness practice. But you mark my words, 10, 15, 20 years from now, it's going to be like going to the gym. People are going to have to create practices around technology.
I agree with that. I mean, I'm the one who's been saying on this podcast forever that I think there's going to be a clear line between people that are plugged in and unplugged. There are going to be people that are going to not going to listen to you and be like, fuck you and your whole, you think you need to be wellness. I'm plugging all the way in because it's so cool and all the cool things that I can do that you can't do. And then there'll be people that are probably wiser and older and realize that, hey, there is some great things to these tools, but with these tools also come these consequences that you're talking about. So I think we're going to have a clear division of plugged and unplugged.
It'll be interesting to see. I just think, like with parents right now, for example, I think you're seeing with parents, some of them are putting practices in place with their kids, but some parents aren't. I think in 10 to 15 years, most parents will put practices. I just think the parents that just don't know. They don't know that. Like I have friends whose kids have unlimited access to iPads and their phones.
There's a lot like that, dude.
And the kids literally do that shit all day.
Yeah.
And they just don't know that there's potential, negatives that can
This is a really silly example, but like I told this, I think a long time ago on the podcast where like, it's just funny because like I still give my dad shit about this today. Cause like I vividly remember like having a cab over the back of his truck. And I was obviously no seatbelts. I'm in the back of his truck going on these long trips, but right next to the gasoline tank. And it was like, all I was getting was gasoline fumes all the way to like, where we're going camping. And it's like, you didn't know how bad that was for you, till just now. So I don't know, man.
That
it's
explains
like,
a lot.
Yeah. That's why I forget everything now though. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be interesting to see the kids, especially the kids that were born in the last 3 to 5 years, to see them over the next 10 to 15 years, because I do feel like we're starting to hear some things like, I mean, just 3 years ago or 5 years ago, nobody was saying anything about evil Google or Facebook or anyone using these tactics to get you looped in. We were so busy celebrating how amazing it all was.
Totally.
So you're just now starting to see the books come out and conversations around it.
It's like any tool. It's like any tool. If I took a hammer and placed it on the table, it wouldn't be good or bad. It's all in how you use it. And the technology, the internet, is quite possibly the most powerful tool that mankind has ever created. And so the consequences of that can potentially be massive and monumental, and the upsides can also be massive and monumental. It's all going to be in how we use it.
Agreed.
Next question is from Adam Pullman Fit. What one of your failures has taught you the greatest lesson in life?
Oh, man.
The greatest lesson?
Which one of your failures has taught you the greatest lesson?
I'll give you probably the deepest one for me that I haven't shared on this podcast before. Somebody asked me, I think in an interview or one of my Q&As, a similar question. And my response was the short sell of my house. I think that I would put that up there with what I think was one of my greatest failures, and then what ended up being probably one of my greatest lessons in life. And for me, the lesson was this, was, those that know my story, because if you've listened to the podcast for a long time, know that I didn't come from very much. I had a rougher childhood than some. And because of that, I was extremely adamant to not be like my parents, to be financially responsible, to be very successful. And I was very driven by money and my credit score and all these things. I mean, as a kid, when I first started getting credit cards, I never missed a payment. I've never been late on anything. And by the time I was 21 years old, I had bought my house. And by the time I was about 24 or 25, I think I had a 850 FICO score, and I had 15 different credit cards that I had crazy limits to it, and I was responsible with all of it. So I just prided myself on being this person, because that's what I had worked towards for so long. And this also speaks to what I talk about, your greatest strength being your greatest weakness sometimes. And for me, like this was my greatest strength, was I had this burning desire to not be like this. Well, that also caused me to identify with that person, that, I was this person of success, and I had these things, and I had a home, and I had great credit, and because I was so driven to be that person, and I became that person, I also identified so strongly with it. And so I went through a time about 7 or 8 years, I think 8 years I had the home, when the market really took a shit. And I was fine. I could still pay my mortgage, but my best friend at the time was heavy into the loans, and he told me, he goes, "Listen, this is going to get worse before it gets better. You have an opportunity right now to walk away from this thing. It's going to be a slap on the wrist. Your credit's going to take a ding, but you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine from the amount of money you'll save by not paying your mortgage, and by getting out of this house, you'll make it back 3 times 5-10 years down the road." And I really wrestled with that for like 6 months. And while I was wrestling with it, I was just watching the equity in the home go down and go down and go down and go down. And finally, I bit the bullet and said, "Fuck it, okay, I'm gonna walk away from this house." And so I began doing that, and I did. I walked away I short sold is what I ended up doing, and it took a fucking ding on my credit, and it put me in a place that I'd never been before. I'd never had a hard time getting a loan for anything or getting a credit card, and I didn't realize how frustrating that was going to be. At the same time, I was transitioning into the cannabis industry, which I've shared with you guys off air before. Was one of the challenging things was that was a heavy cash business, and so on paper I didn't look very successful. I couldn't do a lot of things, and for about 4 or 5 years there, I was really handcuffed financially, and I went through my first bout before the testosterone thing of what I would consider like this kind of depression feeling. Because now I felt like this kind of loser. I was like, man, I didn't my credit, this and that. And it took me a while to look deep inside and kind of ask myself, like, what do I care what others think of me and my credit score and my success? And that doesn't dictate who I am. And in fact, several years later, not even that many years later, I was having some of the most success I've ever had in my life financially. But because I didn't have the credit, I didn't have the home to show for it, I didn't have the cars that I could go out and get, I didn't have these things that would represent that. And it really made me reflect inside and truly dig into who I was and what was important to me, and made me realize how much of that was driven from when I was a kid. And how I'm not my credit score. I'm not my income every single year. And the irony behind all of this was that when I broke free from that, even more success came into my life later on when I no longer identified with it and cared about it. But probably one of the hardest failures or challenges that I went through in my life was doing that, because I identified with that person so much.
That's tough. Yeah, for me, it's easy. It's getting divorced. That's by far the most challenging thing I've ever gone through my entire life. I was married for 15 years with 2 children. And, I'm from a very conservative family. There's only one divorce in my entire massive family, and only one. And it's kind of like nobody really talks about it too much. So here I am. I'm, 15 years into a marriage, which is a long time, 2 children, and it isn't going to work. I actually went through the divorce while we were podcasting. This was in the early days of Mind Pump. And it was very difficult. It was tough. And one thing that happened after coming out of that, when you're going through something like that, it's really alluring. It was really, really alluring to place 100% of the blame on the other person. Like that's exactly what you want to do. You want to look at the other person and be like, it's all your fault that this didn't work. It's all your fault that that this situation had to dissolve, and it's all your fault that now the kids are from a broken family and all that stuff. But I tried to reflect on myself. It took me about maybe 6 months or so to do that, to really take a step back and be like, what was my role in all of that? And I realized, and this is the part that was tough, is I realized I played a large role in it. Like most situations involving 2 people, there's usually involvement from both sides. It's never usually just one person. And so I had to recognize all my involvement. And I wasn't a very present partner. I was extremely, distracted with work. I wasn't super present with my children. I was definitely loving, but I wasn't super present there. I just wasn't a great husband or a super great father. And that was really tough pill to swallow. But it did make me a better father now. I'm much more involved with my kids now, and I'm much better in the relationship that I am now. And so I think it turned me into a much better, more balanced, more intelligent, calm person than I was before. And that's the thing that coming out of that, the thing that I learned from that was the most difficult times of your life, if you can make it through them, is when you're going to come out with the most growth every single time, because there's no way I would have made that growth had it not been for that challenging period. There's no way in hell I would have examined things as deeply and intently as I did. There's no way. I needed severe pain to go to those places. One of my motivations was I was absolutely dedicated to making sure that my children that they suffered as little as possible. I was very afraid. It's one of the reasons why I stayed married as long as I did. Even my ex-wife, both of us were married as long as we did, because we didn't want our kids to go through that whole process and then to have 2 different homes and all that stuff. And she comes from a conservative home as well. And so, going through that whole process, I thought, okay, I want to make this as good of a situation as possible for my kids. In order to do that, I had to just examine myself and look at all the things that I did wrong and all that stuff and change those things. And I would have never changed those things. That's the crazy part. The crazy part is if you're going through a very, very difficult failure, as shitty as this sounds, especially if you're going through one right now and you're listening to the podcast and you hear me saying this and you want to say fuck you.
It'll be the best lesson.
I promise you, if you can survive, that's the key now. So you don't survive it, you're not going to learn shit. And I don't mean it literally, although sometimes. But what I mean by that is sometimes people come out of a failure and they let it defeat them to the point where they're never the same. They're like, I'm just afraid. I'm never going to be the same person. I'm never going to take those risks again. I'm never going to whatever again. But if you can survive and come out of it, you will be better, far better. The more difficult the challenge, the greater the reward afterwards. And it can take years, and it's going to suck. But, man, at the end of it, it's like a hard workout, like the fucking hard, crazy workouts. Many times the ones that give you the most
not only that,
results.
but that lesson too. Like, man, the things that it could potentially trickle into. Like, I was just telling Katrina, we were talking about this lesson, and I was saying, man, it's so crazy that how important that was that happened in my life, because there's no doubt in my mind, if I had Maximus when I was 25 in the thick of all that, I would have now transferred my insecurities onto him. I would have raised him, and I would have spoiled the shit out of him, bought him all kinds of things because I was still trying to feed my insecurity of being this person, and it would have transferred right into a child. And then that, who knows what that would have happened to. And I seen that. I watched that with like my uncle. I seen my uncle, because my uncle had a really rough upbringing, and he was successful very young like I was. And only difference was he had his kids really, really young. And his kids were spoiled rotten. Well, his kids were spoiled rotten because he didn't have anything, and he worked so hard to be successful. And then he now trickled that right down into his kids. And then now here I see them as adults now, and I see the struggle that it's caused. And I think, man, I would have done the same thing had I not got that lesson.
The funny thing is if you want to grow, if you want your kids to grow, but it's also for yourself, if you want to grow, you have to take the risk of terrible failure and defeat. Like, if you want your kids to learn how to be kind of tough, you got to let them take the risk of hurting themselves. It's shitty as a parent, but it's true.
It's tough to watch. Yeah, it's one of those things you just don't want to go through that, but you have to. You have to do it for their own character and building that, and that's part of the process of being a parent, not being a friend. You can't always be their best friend. That's just like, it's a hard fact. Like, you got to teach them life and like how to overcome these sort of situations. And, for me, like you had mentioned, just kind of going through the process of like, bringing a newborn in and, that like having everything stable and stability and everything's on track. And, for me, it was really the opposite of that. It was a very chaotic, process. Like, it was within our first marriage, like went through the whole process trying to do everything I could to do things right and with integrity, in terms of like, asking for the hand in marriage, like going through all this ceremonial ritual stuff that I had no interest in, but it was like, let's go ahead and do this and, merge our families and let's go through this process and, just get to the point where we're in our first year of marriage. And then, at the end of the year, we find out, we're pregnant. And I was like, oh, wow. And it was completely a surprise. And it's great that it happened while it did, right? And we were like very happy and everything else. And, but then it was like all of a sudden this switch is like, oh, wow, we need like our own place. Like my lease was up. I had all this like time now. Well, do I sign a lease? Do I get a place? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I don't have like, I didn't start like saving this whole nest egg up to like buy a place and like put a substantial down payment down. And so I'm like sweating, dude. I'm like, what am I going to do? And so we decided, well, we're going to just, save money. But how do you save money? You gotta stay at either your parents or her parents. And like, I know my dad is old school. And like he's not gonna let me back in the house. Like, that is not even an option on the table, And like I fully respect that about him, but at the same time, like I was sweating because I much rather would have done that because I am familiar, obviously, with like my parents and like that situation, and I would know how to navigate more. But for me to like it was a massive ego hit and check for me to then be like, okay, I agree that we probably need like, a few months to live at your parents so we could like really have a decent like down payment. And so I just was like going through that process of like, just being completely humbled again. Like I had everything on track. I was like making great money.
I didn't know that you lived at Courtney's for a while.
I did.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I lived there for about 4 months.
You kept that shit on the radar.
I did. I was not proud of it. I was not proud of it. And that's the thing is, why should I give a shit? Like they were helping me. Like they were awesome for helping me, but I always was, that of course that's part of my ego is like I can handle it. I can do this. This is me. Like I can, make it work. So I actually towards the end, like we were trying to close on a house and I was trying to do this quickly. Like I'm gonna get the fuck out of here, And it wasn't working out. Like we had a few offers that didn't work out, and the house that we were left with, we're just like, no, like that's a horrible house. And so we ended up like waiting. And then one finally presented itself, and we're like, oh, it's a good deal, And so we, put an offer in, and we got it. And it was like the third month while I was living at like her parents, and then I just was like, okay, I am like immersing myself. I started like after work, I would just go straight there and start remodeling by myself, and then I'd sleep there at night. And I did that for like probably a month and a half, and like was missing, time with Courtney and helping and the kid. And it was insanely stressful, and it put a strain on our relationship, and it was like really crazy. But again, like we reconnected later, and we're just like, like that was insane. Like and the house wasn't done. We moved in when it wasn't done. And we lived in construction, and and we went through that, and then we spent all our money, and so we had no money now, and so now we're just like paycheck to paycheck, just trying to make it ends meet for like the next year, and it was crazy, man. But we got through it, and it's like it's not. I don't know if that's a great example of a failure, more so that it's just life, and like how you just deal with like overcoming adversity.
You got to learn to love your failures. That's what I've always learned.
No,
like, look back and love them and look at them in that way, and then you'll learn more from them.
No, the bigger they are, the truth is the bigger the lesson in them will be, and the bigger the reward when you make it through it. It's just tough to see it when you're in it. When you're in it, you think it's the worst. It's the end of the world. Nobody's experienced what you've experienced, and I get that. I totally get that. But the thing that always got me through, and I think this is the blessing that I feel that I've had because I went through so much shit as a young kid. I think when you've been through enough, you just realize like, fuck, I've been in this rodeo before. It's just it's just a different show today. It's like once I make it through this nasty time, I know on the other side of this is really good times. So you just got to stay focused on that.
Awesome. Look, go to mindpumpfree.com and download our guides for free. There's a bunch of fitness guides on there. They cost nothing. Again, it's mindpumpfree.com. You can also find us all on social media. We're all on Instagram, and we have our own individual pages. You can find me at mindpumpsal. You can find Justin at mindpumpjustin, and you can find Adam at mindpumpadam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.